This is Stephanie March, food editor of Minneapolis St. Paul Magazine, and fellow foodies, it's the most wonderful time of the year, the Minnesota State Fair. And not only are foods on a stick, I'm bringing you a podcast on a stick. It's a show released daily during the run of the fair, covering the fair's best of the best, the must-eats, the new foods, the old favorites, plus events, hidden gems, and the shows you can't miss. We're going to cover it all. Just listen to Podcasts on a Stick. Find episodes on the Podcast One app or wherever you find your podcasts.
This is information not being reported by anyone else. You want the scoop? Here it is with Darren Doogie Wolfson.
TGIF Scoop Podcast Faithful this Friday night, the 24th of August, brings you Scoop Podcast episode 169. We'll catch up with Alex Kirilloff, Twins top minor leaguer, later in the podcast. Also, Peter Udoibok, who is a Gopher football commit. He is a senior wide receiver from Cretin WR. Plus, I've got some Wolves notes, some Gophers notes, and other happenings. Let's, in fact, start with the Wolves. I always do want to thank the sponsors of the Scoop Podcast, Vivid Seats, and a new sponsor, Skyline Specs. I'll tell you about Skyline Specs and Vivid Seats later in the podcast. But we start with Wolves notes. I don't believe these three tidbits, albeit tiny tidbits, but I don't believe these tiny tidbits are out there. Peter Patton, former Wolves shooting coach, has landed the same job with the Dallas Mavericks. He was let go. He was among a handful of Wolves employees, front office / coaches, let go in May. He lands on his feet. Peter Patton to the Dallas Mavericks. I am told the Mavericks actually did not seek out any information on Peter from the Wolves. They got all they needed to get from Chip Engelland, who is the shooting guru of the San Antonio Spurs. Chip is highly thought of in NBA circles, so his opinion carries a ton of weight. He thinks the world of Peter Patton. That is all the Dallas Mavericks needed to hear to hire Peter Patton as their shooting coach. Vince LaGarza, Karl Anthony Towns' buddy, maybe the coach he was closest to the last couple years, even though Vince was just a developmental coach, not even officially an assistant coach. By the way, on that front, I still expect John Lucas III to be elevated, taking the Rick Brunson spot, but nothing official on the Wolves front. But anyway, Vince LaGarza, I am told, will end up landing with the Utah Jazz in some capacity. Also, Wes Bone, who was in the Wolves video department, expected to land with the Milwaukee Bucks. Gorgui Dieng is a mensch for everything that he does for his home country of Senegal. Just this week, donating all sorts of equipment to a children's hospital in Senegal. He signed that life-changing 4-year, $63 million deal. What, a year and a half ago, that life-changing money is going toward good causes. Gorgui Dieng does so much for his home country of Senegal. So kudos to you, Gorgui Dieng. Also, Gorgui is on the roster to play for Senegal in the FIBA World Cup qualifier mid-September. I am told he is likely to play, but he is not 100% committed to playing just yet. Although, again, he is on the roster for Senegal. But the issue is, it's not like these games are in the United States, in the Twin Cities, where it's conveniently located. So he would play these games that weekend, the weekend of September 15th. Then boom, snap of the fingers, it is time for training camp. So do you want to go through that grueling travel, the meat grinder that is those games, and all of a sudden need to ramp up for training camp? But indications right now lean toward Gorgui Dieng playing for Senegal. Bleacher Report has a new report out. Eric Pincus, who's great at what he does. I like Eric. He's now doing some NBA TV work. I've known Eric through social media circles for a while. Really enjoy Eric's work. He reported on Friday on Bleacher Report's website that he hears from somebody close to Jimmy Butler that Jimmy is very open to joining LeBron James and the LA Lakers next summer. So let's say the Lakers swing and miss on Kawhi Leonard, or maybe they end up with Kawhi Leonard. They have all these one-year deals, so they might be able to create 2 max openings, and maybe they go after Kawhi and Jimmy Butler, or maybe Kawhi ends up with the Clippers. Who knows? Maybe Kawhi likes it in Toronto, re-signs with Toronto. I wouldn't bet on that. I still think Kawhi Leonard to the Lakers makes all sorts of sense next summer. But regardless, Eric Pincus, through his sources, somebody close to Jimmy, source, I think it's more singular, not plural, but indicates that Jimmy is very, very open to playing for the Lakers. We do know that he spends a lot of time He either rents or owns. I don't know if he owns the house in the L.A. area, but he spends a lot of time in the off-season in the Los Angeles area. So something to keep an eye on. Actually, here's the deal. For the next 9 months, you will hear all sorts of stories about Jimmy Butler going to, you name the team. About half the league, not the Wolves, but about half the league next summer will have really good cap space. So you will hear all sorts of stories, rumors, over the next handful of months, 6, 7, 8, 9 months, about Jimmy Butler going to the Knicks, Jimmy Butler going to the Nets, Jimmy Butler going to the Lakers. Here's what I can tell you. As of now, as of August 24th, as I record this podcast, episode 169 of the Scoop podcast, Jimmy Butler has not told Tom Thibodeau that he plans on leaving. Now, we know he turned down 4 years, $110 million on the extension. That was logical because he can make so much more money next summer. So if you're Tibbs, you have the closest relationship imaginable with Jimmy, with Jimmy's agent, Bernie Lee. If you're Tibbs, I get it where Tibbs is coming from. He feels like, hey, we can pay Jimmy $50 million more than anyone else. I am closest with him. Why would I trade him right now when he hasn't given me any indication that he is going elsewhere? But I'm just telling you, be prepared. This is not the first story volunteering information that Jimmy is open-minded, that he likely will end up elsewhere next summer. So this is just another, and there will be another, I'm telling you, in a short amount of time. Karl Anthony Towns, I am led to believe, is still expected to sign his 5-year max extension. The deadline is still about 6 weeks away. It is interesting that he continues to wait. What sort of statement is he making by waiting? I mean, that would be a fun talk radio topic. We could dive into that next time I'm on 1500 ESPN filling in. But I can just tell you the expectation still is he is not turning down that life-changing money that Karl Anthony Towns eventually, maybe it's 5.5 weeks from now, maybe it's the night before the deadline, maybe it's a minute before the deadline. But I'm telling you, I'm led to believe that Karl Anthony Towns still plans on signing his 5-year max extension. The Joakim Noah wait continues, although I've heard from some agents who are led to believe that the Wolves are still open-minded to adding a wing. But nothing going on the Sean Kilpatrick front, the Nick Young front, the Corey Brewer front. I've been saying for weeks Corey Brewer would sign here today if the Wolves made him a minimum offer, but it doesn't look like the Wolves will be doing that, even though he was one of about 45 free agents they reached out on July 1st or over those first handful of days of free agency. Also, John Jenkins, Brandon Paul, Marcus Georges-Hunt. It doesn't look like the Wolves will bring back Georges-Hunt, but he is still available. He actually worked out recently for the Denver Nuggets. If you're heading to the fair, Tom Thibodeau doing something Monday afternoon at the Wolves booth. Also, I know Tibbs is doing some different things. I know he had lunch with Jerry Zgoda the other day. He's doing something with some other media members in early September. So Tibbs back here in town. He's been in town most of the offseason, but Tibbs getting out and about a little bit more than in past years. Although he did something at the State Fair last year, that I do know. So Tom Thibodeau at the State Fair on Monday. I've been asked about Glenn Taylor, that Glenn wasn't at Lindsey Whalen's final home game last weekend, the celebration of Lindsey Whalen. Here's what I can tell you. Glenn thinks the world of Lindsey. Glenn loves, emphasis on loves, the Lynx. Glenn not being there wasn't by design. I don't know specifically what is going on with Glenn. Heck, it's his own personal deal, right? I mean, we don't need to know everything about Glenn Taylor's personal life, but to rip, I saw some tweets ripping Glenn Taylor. I saw some Facebook posts ripping Glenn Taylor for not being at Lindsey Whalen's final game, that celebration, the send-off. I can just tell you, Glenn, if everything was ideal, perfect, he would have been there. So there is no reason to rip Glenn. No need to go at Glenn. Hopefully Glenn is doing okay. All right, let's get to Peter Udoibok, future Gophers football wide receiver. But first, let me tell you about Vivid Seats. The Vikings have their home opener coming up against the San Francisco 49ers. It's the regular season opener, Sunday, September 9th. Then a couple weeks later, it's Denny Green going into the Ring of Honor, September, what would that be, 23rd, against the Buffalo Bills. The Vikings should have a special season. Vivid Seats is an online event ticket marketplace dedicated to providing fans of live entertainment with experiences that last a lifetime. They are your spot to get to U.S. Bank Stadium to see the Vikings, and you have an exclusive offer. Scoop listeners should go to vividseats.com or download the app and enter promo code SCOOP for 10% off your first ticket order. New customers only. The offer is valid through the end of August, so you only have a few more days to go. VividSeats.com, promo code Doogie for 10% off your first order. Go to VividSeats.com for your Vikings ticket needs. Being at U.S. Bank Stadium during what could be a very special season would be ideal. If you follow the Vikings at all, casually, passionately, get to U.S. Bank Stadium this season. If you haven't been to U.S. Bank Stadium, I know a lot of people who haven't been to U.S. Bank Stadium. Here's your chance to get to U.S. Bank Stadium at not a ridiculous price. It is Vivid Seats, vividseats.com.
This is Stephanie March, food editor of Minneapolis St. Paul Magazine, and fellow foodies, it's the most wonderful time of the year, the Minnesota State Fair. And not only are foods on a stick, I'm bringing you a podcast on a stick. It's a show released daily during the run of the fair, covering the fair's best of the best, the must-eats, the new foods, the old favorites, plus events, hidden gems, and the shows you can't miss. We're going to cover it all. Just listen to Podcasts on a Stick. Find episodes on the Podcast One app or wherever you find your podcasts.
All right, let's get to Peter Udoibok, Cretin WR wide receiver, 3-star recruit. He committed to the Gophers just a couple weeks ago. He is now among over 20 players in the Gophers recruiting class of 2019. How are things going so far?
Things are pretty well. Team's looking pretty good. Obviously, there's going to be little things you got to fix, but pretty well.
And I would presume that you've been working hard all summer. So really, with the start of practice on Monday, it's really a continuation of all the hard work you've put in all summer.
I've been looking very forward to this, just itching to get on back on the field.
How high are expectations this year?
I want to go back to the bank and hopefully win it. So,
yeah, I mean, the way last year ended, you guys losing to Minnetonka, how much does that motivate you? How much does it motivate the team?
It hurt, so just building off that pain, make sure I don't feel it again, just makes me want to crush, I guess, that team even more and hopefully win a championship.
How many guys do you guys have back? I mean, is it a good mix of guys that are back from last year's team and some new guys?
It's a good mix. We got both our running backs are back, QB, most of our linemen, but obviously there's new people coming in.
Did your role change at all this year, being a senior and being a leader now?
Obviously, as a senior, you're going to have to be a leader, but yeah, I think so.
What kind of leader are you?
More of someone to look up to. I'm not going to push you if you don't want to put in the work. Like, you got to want to do it, and then I'll really push you. But, yeah.
You have some individual goals for this year? I saw your numbers last year with 3 touchdown catches, 21-something, catches. I mean, do you have some individual goals for this year?
Hopefully, one of my goals would be to get, somewhere around 1,000 yards and beat out the number for touchdowns I did last year. So just kind of keep going up the stairs from last year.
Do you feel like you have it in you to produce those sorts of numbers?
For sure, yeah. I believe. I've trained hard enough to make sure I can do it.
How much better are you? I mean, even looking back at last year, how much better of a player are you this year compared to the player you were last year?
I've definitely gotten stronger and faster, so that's also something I can build off of, and just cleaning up my routes and perfecting my craft.
What are you, about 6'4", and how much do you weigh?
6'4", 200.
Okay, and then what were you last year? I mean, are you still growing even? Are your growth plates still open?
I still got a couple more inches left in me, but last year I was like 6'3", 190, so I've grown.
Take us through the commitment to the Gophers. I mean, they offered and you committed pretty much, right on the spot?
It was exciting. I mean, who doesn't want to play for the hometown school? It's like 10 minutes away from my house, so pretty much all my friends and family can come visit, so they're excited. And it's a great facility, great coaches, great place to be at.
What was it like when you broke the news? Was it to Coach Simon, Coach Fleck? What was it like when you told the coaches that, hey, I want to be a Gopher?
Fleck, he was pretty excited. He was the one who kind of sat me down, and then I was like, I want to be a Gopher. And stood up, and he was pretty excited.
Yeah, and then what about your position coach, Coach Simon?
Coach Simon kind of knew where I was at with the Gophers, and that was kind of a place I wanted to be. But once, it was kind of set in stone that I wanted to be there, he was pretty excited.
Do you have position flexibility, or are you just strictly a wide receiver?
Wide receiver.
So there's no talk of, defensive end if you put on some weight or something like that?
They told me primarily I'll be the outside receiver, so I don't think anything will really change.
Take us through your summer. I mean, did you go to one of their camps, and that's when interest picked up?
Well, I was kind of always in contact with them, and then they told me to come to their first camp, And I was like, well, I got to prove Fleck that I could play at this place, so worked my butt off.
And so when you worked your butt off, I mean, you performed very well at that camp, and that's what led to the offer eventually?
I believe so. I believe I was one of the top guys that was there. So had a meeting with him after, and he said he wanted to get to know me and that he'd be in contact.
Have you gotten to know some of your future teammates, whether it's Cole Kramer from Eden Prairie or the running back from Owatonna?
I've gotten to know Cole and Jason, and then the other commits. We have a group chat on Snapchat, so we're always texting each other once in a while. And they're all a great group of guys.
What are you guys texting about normally?
Just kind of what we're doing in the day, the work we're putting in, how excited we are, stuff like that.
Do you have any plans, if it's January, to graduate high school early and join the Gophers early?
I'm hoping that's one of the things I could do. I still got to talk with, guidance counselors and all that to see if I can get it done. But, yeah, if I can, I'll do it.
But you also play basketball?
Yeah. If I don't graduate early, I'll play basketball. But
is that the challenging part of the decision, whether to go to college early or get to play your last year of high school basketball?
I don't really know, to be honest. Football's always kind of been my favorite sport. So if something intervenes with me wanting to go further, I'm definitely going to just have to cut it out and play football. But I'll definitely miss basketball a little bit, just like the team and Coach Klein, but football's where I want to be.
Take us through what kind of receiver you are. I mean, are you a physical blocker? Are you one that can stretch the field? I mean, if you had to write a scouting report about the receiver that you are, what would it say?
One that can definitely stretch the field, definitely that's able to high point the ball at any point, has speed and the ability to just be smooth, I guess.
Where can you get better?
Definitely my cuts and getting out in and out of breaks, stuff like that, pretty much.
Gophers football commitment wide receiver from Cretin Hall, 2019 Gophers football commit. So he's a senior at Cretin Hall, Peter Udoibok. I caught up with him at the end of the first week of, I don't know, do you call it training camp, summer practice, August practice, gearing up for the opener on August 30th. Actually, the day I was there, Peter was out with a very minor knee injury. He was running. He just wasn't in uniform. He should be okay come the regular season. Future Gophers wide receiver, Peter Udoibok. I've got some other Gophers football-related items, but let's shift gears. Alex Kirilloff just got done with his game here on this Friday night, plus I had a free second. Multitasking, doing some TV work for Channel 5 and trying to finish off this podcast. So this works out well. So we will pivot here from Udoibok to Alex Kirilloff, one of the Twins' top prospects. Then I will empty out my notebook, some notes on the Gophers, Twins, and a few other things, including the Wild, actually. But let's get to Alex right now. Alex, it's great to catch up. I've been looking at numbers. I mean, for the most part, you lead all of minor league baseball in hits, doubles. You're among the leaders in extra base hits. You're top 10 in RBIs. You're an on-base machine. You're a slugging machine. You're also one of the youngest players in the Florida State League. How the heck are you doing all of this?
The biggest thing right now is I'm just trying to have fun. My foremost goal going into this year was to get through a full healthy season again. And, I'm happy to do that so far. And, I'm happy with the results so far as well. So now we're just focused on, finishing the season strong and, making a playoff run, hopefully.
On an individual level, though, I mean, do you recalibrate your goals? I mean, you're going to get through this year completely healthy. I mean, the numbers that you're putting up, I mean, do you have loftier individual goals? I mean, do you have a goal of finishing, among, the league leaders, not only league, but I mean, all of minor league baseball and, whether it is doubles, hits, batting average, what have you?
For me, I'm not really big into the statistical categories. I'm a big believer in, making each game count, every game, every pitch, every bat, every inning, and focusing and making that day and that game, and playing as best as you can through that day. So, at the end of the day, wherever that takes me, I'm usually pretty satisfied with knowing that I gave it my all that day. And, if not, just working on making those adjustments to, get the better results. So that's really what I'm focused on each day. I'm not huge into statistics, so I'm just trying to, finish this season out strong.
Well, take us through the process. I mean, take us through your development. I mean, heck, It was, 2 years ago, just over 2 years ago, the Twins drafted you. I mean, to have all the success you're having, I mean, what has worked so well for you? And you missed all of last year. We'll get to that in a second. I mean, you missed an entire season, so you had that run with E-Town for 50-something games after you signed with the Twins 2 years ago. You miss all of last year, and now you're putting up these big-time numbers this year. Take us through the process, the development from the time the Twins drafted you until now.
Yeah, for me, I think it's just the big thing I learned this year is, just having fun, enjoying everyday playing. It's special to be healthy and be blessed with the talent that God has given me to go out there every day and play well. But, what makes me the happiest is, just enjoying my teammates, enjoying the relationships built throughout the course of the season, and, just making impacts on people and just, loving on others and enjoying people around me. That's what it's all about. And, win or lose, at the end of the day, we're still playing baseball. We're having fun. So I think at the beginning of the year when, I was getting going again, I missed a full year. I was kind of missing that. And, once I found that again, I don't think it was coincidentally that I started playing better. So that's kind of the adjustment I made early, and I just trying to carry that throughout the whole year. And, it's been a lot of fun since then.
Do you think much about the age difference? I mean, are you the second youngest player in the Florida State League, and Royce Lewis is the youngest?
I have no idea. No one's really told us that, so I can't really answer that question.
But, I mean, you have to be right up there. I mean, let's say you're the third youngest or fourth youngest. I mean, you are competing most nights against players that are 2-3 years older than you. Do you think about that much?
No, not at all. If anything, I've done that my whole life. I've played up my whole life against, older players, so it doesn't bother me at all.
What was it like rehabbing from Tommy John surgery last year?
It was a long process. It's never the news that you want to get, hearing that you are going to miss the whole season. But, for me, I kind of just took it, as a blessing in disguise. I think I got better from it and used it to my advantage and, worked hard to get back and got stronger, and everything. So, I think I did a pretty good job and, made the most of it.
How important is the support system that you have in place? I mean, specifically, you are married. I mean, so you have that person that you can lean on, that rock that is in your corner, minute after minute. I know your dad's at a lot of games, so you've got your parents and others that you can lean on. But the fact that you're married, how important was it having your wife through that rehab process?
Yeah, it's huge. I really can't say enough how blessed I was to have her there for me. Throughout that whole process, along with my parents, and the rest of my family as well. It definitely can never hurt having, other people in your corner who are, there for you to talk to, there for advice, and, there for all the support that you need. So, definitely a blessing to have them, for sure.
How did tonight's game go? We're talking to Alex Kirilloff here on Friday night, the 24th of August. How did tonight's game go? I did see you guys won.
Yeah, we went pretty well. It was a close one. I think it was a 3-2 win. And, just played well tonight. Hopefully we can do it again tomorrow.
How about on an individual level? Did you perform okay?
Yeah, I did fine. I felt like I put together good at bats. Hit some balls hard. And, I was pretty satisfied with it. Hopefully just do it again tomorrow.
Any sense, Alex, if you're headed to the Arizona Fall League?
No, I don't believe I am. I think I'm just going to be able to have a full off season this year. Given that I haven't had one yet, so I think that's the plan. And what does a full off season entail? I mean, obviously it entails some rest, but obviously you'll be hard at work at times too, I imagine. Yeah, just being able to recharge myself after the season, and then get back to training once again whenever that gears up. Do you mirror your swing after anyone? Am I correct when the Twins drafted you, were there some Christian comparisons, Yelich, or is there anybody else in the majors that you mirror your swing after? Not exactly. I've heard a lot of Christian Yelich comps when I was in high school, going through the draft process. But I don't really mirror anyone. I like watching different players and grabbing bits and pieces from guys' games and kind of making it my own. I've heard kind of a similar setup with Joey Votto as well. So I don't really mirror anyone though.
Do you take pride in being able to hit it gap to gap, that you can go opposite field when need be? Oh
yeah, it's something I work on all the time, and I try to pride myself in being as well of a rounded hitter as I can be. So that's a big part of it.
How has your defense progressed this year?
I think it's progressed a lot. I'm always going to keep working to get better, but I think from the beginning of the year till now, it's come a long way, and I'm just going to continue to work on it.
Playing outfield just about every night?
Yes.
Specifically, where, right or left?
Right field, yep.
And, you're getting comfortable? That's a position that you're plenty comfortable at?
Yeah, I'm very comfortable now, and for the most part, all the outfield positions. So, wherever they need me.
What's it like playing with Royce Lewis?
It's a lot of fun. We're roommates and stuff on the road, and we get along pretty well. And he's an awesome teammate to be around. He's a high energy guy. He's very supportive of everyone, and obviously he brings a lot to the table. So he's awesome.
Do you like when he says, I got the video from our Fort Myers TV affiliate there, the ABC and NBC affiliate. So you did an interview with our affiliate down there in the last week and a half, and Royce in the interview, you were standing right there, made the comparison that it would be cool. You look at the Royals a couple years ago, with Hosmer, Moustakas, Kane, some of those guys coming up together. Then the Cubs with, Bryan and Rizzo and Baez, a lot of the guys with the Cubs and all the success the Cubs have had coming up together. Do you like when Royce makes that comparison that, you and him coming up together maybe can have that sort of impact on the big league club one day, just like, those guys with the Cubs and Royals?
Yeah, I think it's awesome to think about, and, definitely a pretty cool comparison. Obviously we would love that, in a perfect scenario for that to happen and make the impact like those guys did in Minnesota. But, really the only thing that we can control is, working our tails off and, coming ready to the field to play every day and, just playing hard to get to that level and, let the rest take care of itself. So we're excited for it, though.
Twins top prospect. He was their 2016 first-round pick out of the Pittsburgh area, out of high school. Alex Kirilloff, pretty darn amazing when you consider that he played 55 professional games for E-Town. Now, he kicked butt, but he played those 55 games after signing in 2016, then missed all of last year after Tommy John surgery. So he misses an entire season. At his young age, he rebounds like nobody would have expected. He is unbelievable. Hopefully opens next year at AA, but maybe he opens up at Fort Myers, eventually gets to AA. He is on a path to join the Twins, maybe as soon as late next year if all goes well, maybe more realistically 2020, but certainly a name to know. Alex Kirilloff, Twins minor league right fielder. He also dropped a little bit of news there. I thought there might be a chance that the Twins would have him play in the Arizona Fall League, but it sounds like, according to him, that will not be happening. I'll get to a few other Twins notes in a second. Let me tell you about Skyline Specs, SkylineSpecs.com. Skyline Specs is an urban lifestyle brand that connects people to the Twin Cities community. They're a local student startup that does this by engraving major city skylines, such as Minneapolis and St. Paul, on the sides of their premium wooden sunglasses. They offer a variety of polarized styles you'll be sure to love. Use the promo code MN for Minnesota, MN, for 15% off. The website, again, is SkylineSpecs.com. All right, some Twins notes piggybacking off the Kirilloff interview. Let me look at my notes here. We had Thad Levine on this podcast, the Scoop podcast, earlier this week, episode 168. He said next week, Brad Stile, who leads their pro personnel scouting department, he's bringing in a handful of scouts. They will divvy out assignments for these scouts to watch pending free agents. So free agents that the Twins may go after in the winter. They will all convene at Target Field next week for free agent meetings, personnel meetings, pro scouting meetings, then divvy up assignments for the month of September. So the likes of Mike Radcliffe and others will be out watching potential Twins targets this winter. Also on Scoop Podcast episode 168, I caught up with Steven Gonsalves' mom and dad. They were at the ballpark on Monday for Steven's Major League debut. Steven will make his second start for the Twins tomorrow, Saturday, the 25th, against Oakland. And also Thad Levine chimed in a bunch on Gonsalves and looked ahead to his start against the A's. Derek Falvey was on with Judd Zulgad on 1500 ESPN earlier on Friday. He said on the Joe Mauer front that they'll get clarity soon after the season, sometime in October. Derek really didn't hint one way or another. Earlier in the season, the belief was that Joe absolutely wants to play at least one more year. But I can tell you, more recently, people close to Mauer, and certainly Joe isn't going to say anything himself, but people close to Mauer have gone pretty silent. But based on his success, I mean, he's had a good year when he's been healthy. He's still an on-base machine. We know the power isn't there, but he's still a hitting machine. He still plays Gold Glove defense. You know, unless for personal reasons, his wife is pregnant with child number 3, unless for personal reasons he wants to walk away, or who knows, maybe the concussion symptoms have come back, anything goofy like that. I haven't heard that, by the way. I'm just throwing that out there as a hypothetical. But otherwise, it wouldn't make sense for him to walk away because he can still perform at a high level. And if Joe wants to play another year, do not even begin with, oh, hey, what about to New York for the Yankees or somewhere else? If Joe Mauer plays another season or two, or who knows longer, it will be in a Twins uniform. Also on that Falvey conversation with Judd Zulgad, he said that Miguel Sano will spend a good amount of time this winter in Fort Myers. Certainly can't spend the entire winter. Heck, the collective bargaining agreement doesn't allow the Twins to dictate anything on the Miguel Sano front. If he wants to spend the entire winter in the Dominican Republic, close to his family, he could do that. But Falvey said with his communication with Sano's camp that he knows that Miguel will spend a healthy amount of time this winter on conditioning and other things in Fort Myers. One other Twins note, it's unfortunate with the Irvin Santana injury. If he had pitched like he did, let's say, last year, the Brewers were absolutely interested. We saw the news this week of the Brewers putting in a claim in on Matt Harvey of the Reds. The Brewers are still on the lookout for a starting pitcher. Irvin Santana was absolutely on the Brewers' radar, but his injury throws that possibility out the window. Irvin Santana isn't going anywhere. In fact, Irvin Santana may not even pitch again this year. We have to wonder if Irvin Santana has thrown his final pitch in a Twins uniform. We know he won't be back next year. That option that the Twins will not certainly exercise at $13 or $14 million a year. I don't have the exact number in front of me, but we know this much. Irvin Santana isn't coming back at that number in 2019. All right, let's get to some Vikings notes. All Chad Beebe does is star. Heck, he, after his performance on Friday against Seattle, is locking up minimum a practice squad spot. You have to wonder, though, if the Vikings would even consider him for the 53-man roster. Kendall Wright was a no-show. I said on the Andy Carlson podcast, I'm a regular guest on Andy's podcast, which is also available here on the Podcast One network, readily available, 1500ESPN.com. I'm a regular guest on Andy's podcast going back over the last year or so. I join him once a week. A couple weeks ago, he said, hey, give me the name of a surprise cut. I said, keep an eye on Kendall Wright because he doesn't have special teams flexibility. I can tell you, Kendall Wright is very much up in the air to make the Vikings 53-man roster. Put it this way, he is far from a lock. If you're one of those fans that does the roster breakdown, will they go 26 defenders, 24 on offense plus the 3 specialists? Will they go 25 and 25 plus the 3 specialists? I'm just telling you, if you do that, do not write in ink Kendall Wright. If you want to write in pencil and you can erase it, fine, so be it. There's still a chance he could impress them. But I'm just telling you, as I sit here on the night of August 24th, Kendall Wright is far from any sort of lock to make the Vikings 53-man roster. The Vikings still are not close on an Anthony Barr contract extension on Pat Elflein. I said on the Andy Carlson podcast 2 weeks ago that Pat could be back as soon as this Monday, which was 4 days ago, that he was making progress. Injuries are tricky. Let me remind you, injuries are tricky, And, that day, I got the intel. Trust me, I didn't make it up. I got it from somebody close to Pat that led me to believe that, he could be back as soon as Monday, that he's been sore-free for a little bit here. But the shoulder is still offering some level of soreness now a couple days later. Things are up in the air. We know that Pat Elflein won't play this preseason. Is it possible he's back by September 9th? Remains to be seen, just again because injuries can be tricky. But, hey, the other possibility is the Vikings have to weigh, and they also like Cornelius Edison, by the way. They really like the play of Edison. They have to weigh, hey, is the 53-man roster spot valuable enough where Pat needs more time that we start Pat on the PUP list to start the regular season? If he does start on the PUP list to start the regular season, he would miss a minimum of 6 games. So those are some of the things the Vikings are weighing internally. On Gophers football, let me remind you, on Scoop Podcast episode 168, we had Dr. Grant Norland on. He is from the Quarterback Institute in the West Metro. He has worked with Gophers starting quarterback Zach Annexstad going back 6 years. So Zach is off limits to the media until he plays in a game. Annexstad's parents don't want to do any interviews right now, so trying to find people who know the Gophers' new starting quarterback. And Grant is one of those individuals, having worked with Zach going back to when Zach was in the 8th grade. So if you're interested in learning about the new Gopher starting quarterback, be sure to find Scoop Podcast episode 168. I continue to hear a lot of good things about Blake Cashman. Good story there. Former walk-on, now on scholarship from Eden Prairie High School. He is positioning himself, especially with his special teams flexibility, to have a chance to make money playing football, maybe even in the NFL. When we talk about the Gophers' top NFL draft prospects, Rodney Smith, Jared Weiler at center, also Donnell Green at left tackle. Also, I'm telling you, you can add Blake Cashman. He may not get drafted, but he's one of those guys that'll go to some team's rookie minicamp, and he will have a chance to impress. Ray Buford, remember him, former Gophers defensive back? He plays for New Mexico State. Oddly, New Mexico State, well, they wanted the ESPN2 slot, but what a weird week it'll be for them because they open up on Saturday night against Wyoming, late Saturday night, if I'm not mistaken. Then short week, they have to hop on an airplane Wednesday early afternoon to come to the Twin Cities to play the Gophers on Thursday. But anyway, Ray Buford Jr. is on the New Mexico State team. I texted with his dad on Friday, and I said, hey, is Ray a starter? He said Ray is still fighting for playing time. So that may play itself out here in that Wyoming game. Then it remains to be seen if Buford gets some run against his former team, the Gophers, Thursday at TCF Bank Stadium. I continue to hear that many tickets are available. If you're thinking about going to the Gophers opener against New Mexico State on Thursday night, what is it, a 6 o'clock kickoff? You can get tickets. I can promise you that. If you're interested, tickets are readily available. We'll wrap up with a couple basketball notes and wild notes on the Gophers basketball front, men's basketball front. Players are back on campus next week. So Isaiah Washington went home to New York. Jordan Murphy went home to San Antonio. Go up and down the list. Guys will be back on campus next week. The Gophers will be hosting 4 recruits over the next 4 weekends. The name locally to know is David Roddy of Breck High School. By the way, on David, he'll also visit Northwestern here in the very near future. And I hear from somebody close to David that an ACC school is showing a lot of interest, that he may be getting an offer from an ACC school. I was told the Gophers have a crack, that they took too long to make the offer, but it's not like he has dismissed the idea of playing for the Gophers. So they certainly are in the mix for David Roddy, the forward from Breck. On the Wild, Chris Long, my colleague, was over in the West Metro at a workout the other day. It was an endless list of NHL players. Ryan McDonough, Brady Shea. Who else was there? Brock Besser. So many guys. Anyway, he caught up with Devin Dubnyk of the Wild and Eric Stahl of the Wild, Vinny Lettieri, Kyle Rao, Nick Bukestad. I mean, there were just so many guys there. Anyway, Devin Dubnyk said, for what it's worth, he's feeling great, had a great summer. He's ready to rock and roll for training camp. Same goes for Eric Stahl. On the Ryan Suter injury front, I texted with Ryan the other day. May try to connect with him next week if we can match up schedules. Anyway, he's back in town next week to continue his rehab, but he feels like he is doing fantastic. Remember that serious injury at the end of the regular season. Also, the new practice facility, the Wild were able to get in there for a cup of coffee last regular season, in and out. Did a lot of their practicing, though, at the X. But they had a few practices at their new practice facility. But every bell and whistle now is in place. It is state-of-the-art in downtown St. Paul. So I know the Wild players will be jacked up to be in that new practice facility full-time. All right, that does it for Scoop Podcast episode 169. I'll be back at some point next week, I hope, although my schedule is a little bit all over the place. I'm hoping to connect with a few people, though, luminaries, at the State Fair early in the week. I also am taping a conversation with Kirk Cousins' mental coach, one of his mental coaches. Figure it's a different angle on Cousins that really hasn't been told. So I should post that soon thereafter. I believe I'm recording that interview on Monday night. So minimum Monday or Tuesday, late Monday, or Tuesday the 27th or 28th, we should have Scoop Podcast episode 170 posted. In the meantime, though, I hope you enjoyed Scoop Podcast episode 169. Thank you to Vivid Seats, vividseats.com, and to Skyline Specs, SkylineSpecs.com. Those great people keep the podcast going. Have a great weekend.
This is Stephanie March, food editor of Minneapolis St. Paul Magazine, and fellow foodies, it's the most wonderful time of the year, the Minnesota State Fair. And not only are foods on a stick, I'm bringing you a podcast on a stick. It's a show released daily during the run of the fair, covering the fair's best of the best, the must-eats, the new foods, the old favorites, plus events, hidden gems, and the shows you can't miss. We're going to cover it all. Just listen to Podcasts on a Stick. Find episodes on the Podcast One app or wherever you find your podcasts.
I'm Rita Foley with an AP News Minute. Defense Secretary Jim Mattis was there to greet the McCain family last night as Senator and war hero John McCain's body was flown to a military base outside Washington. Today, McCain's body will lie in state under the Capitol Rotunda. AP Washington correspondent Sagar Magani.
After a memorial service yesterday in his adopted home of Arizona, a military jet flew McCain's body east to Joint Base Andrews, where he was greeted with an armed forces tribute. He's now lying in state at the U.S. Capitol, where he's served for so many years, and where the public will be allowed to file in on what's expected to be a stormy day here in Washington. McCain will be buried Sunday.
Ariana Grande and Stevie Wonder will sing, and former President Clinton will speak at Aretha Franklin's funeral today in Detroit. But organizers promise this will be a service, not a show. An American man's pleaded not guilty to assault in Uganda after video footage showed him punching a hotel worker. I'm Rita Foley.